Love in 7 Acts. It was a stormy night when I first laid eyes on him, the kind of night where the wind howled like a banshee and the rain pelted the windows with relentless fury. I was closing up the cafe, wiping down the last of the tables when the door burst open. James stood there, drenched and out of breath, looking like he'd just run a marathon. His eyes locked onto mine, and for a moment the world outside ceased to exist. "Do you mind if I wait out the storm here?" he asked, his voice a blend of desperation and charm. "Sure," I replied, trying to sound nonchalant. "But you'll have to help me with the dishes." He laughed, a deep, warm sound that sent shivers down my spine. Little did I know this was just the calm before the storm. James turned out to be surprisingly good at washing dishes, and even better at making me laugh. We talked about everything and nothing. His stories are spontaneous, road trips and midnight adventures contrasting sharply with my quiet, routine life. Just as I was about to ask him why he was out on such a dreadful night, the lights flickered and went out, plunging us into darkness. "Great," I muttered, fumbling for my phone. "Relax," he said, his voice close to my ear. "I've got a flashlight." He switched it on, casting eerie shadows on the walls. As the beam of light danced around, it landed on a figure outside the window. My heart skipped a beat. There, in the pouring rain, was a man with a menacing grin, staring straight at us. "Did you see that?" I whispered, clutching James's arm. "Yeah," he replied, his face serious. "We need to get out of here." We hurried to the back door, but it was jammed. Panic surged through me as I remembered the front door was our only way out, and it was where the stranger had been standing. James noticed my fear and squeezed my hand reassuringly. "Trust me," he said, his eyes filled with determination. "We'll be okay." As we made our way back, we heard a loud crash. The man had broken the window and was climbing inside. My heart pounded in my chest as we bolted for the front door. Just as we reached it, I felt a hand grab my shoulder. I spun around, ready to fight, but it was James who'd grabbed me. "He's not following," he said, pointing to the stranger, who was now lying unconscious on the cafe floor. Relief washed over me until I noticed a small pool of blood forming beneath him. "What did you do?" I asked, my voice trembling. "He slipped on the wet floor," James explained. "Must have hit his head. We didn't have time to dwell on it. We needed to get out before he woke up." As we stepped outside, the rain had eased to a drizzle. I looked at James, soaked and disheveled, and couldn't help but laugh. "What's so funny?" he asked, a smile tugging at his lips. "I just realized I never even got your name," I said. "It's James," he replied. "And yours?" "Rachel," I said, feeling a strange sense of fate in the air. James insisted on walking me home, despite my protests. The storm had left the streets eerily empty, and our footsteps echoed in the quiet. I felt a mix of fear and exhilaration with each step, like we were characters in one of his wild stories. As we rounded the corner to my apartment, a black car screeched to a halt in front of us. The doors flew open, and 2 men in dark suits stepped out, their expressions grim. "James," one of them said, "it's time to come back." I looked at James, confused and alarmed. "What is this?" I demanded. "I'm sorry, Rachel," he said, his eyes pleading. "There's something I need to tell you." Before James could explain, the men grabbed him, dragging him towards the car. I ran after them, but one of the men blocked my path. "Stay out of this, miss," he warned. "Rachel, listen to me," James shouted over his shoulder. "I didn't want you to get involved, but there's no time now. I'm a federal agent, and I've been undercover." My mind reeled. James, a federal agent? It sounded like something out of a movie. What about the guy at the cafe? I called out. "Part of the operation," he said, "but I couldn't leave without seeing you again." Before I could respond, they shoved him into the car and sped off, leaving me standing there, drenched and stunned. Days turned into weeks, and I heard nothing from James. I tried to move on, but my heart wasn't ready to let go. Then, one evening, as I was closing up the cafe, a familiar figure walked in. It was James, looking worn but alive. "James," I exclaimed, running to him. "Rachel," he said, pulling me into a tight embrace. "I'm sorry I disappeared. The operation is over, and I'm finally free." Tears of relief and joy streamed down my face. "I thought I'd never see you again," I whispered. "Neither did I," he said, his voice breaking. "But I had to come back. For you." And as we stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, I realized that no storm, no danger, could ever keep us apart. Our story had just begun.